So this week we've got two spotlights. We'll start with Streets of Rage 1, also known as just Streets of Rage. It came out in 1991 as Sega's clear response to Capcom's Final Fight. Right in the middle of the Sega versus Capcom arms race, you can really feel Sega trying to position itself as tougher, more street level, with a city that feels grimy and lawless. And it's got a tone that's more aggressive than a lot of other console games at the time. The setup is simple, very early 90s. Crime-ridden city has been taken over by Mr. X, and three former cops decide that the system just isn't working, and they quit and start cleaning up the streets themselves. Um, the playable characters immediately sell that attitude that Sega was going for. Axel's the all-around balanced fighter, Blaze is faster and more technical, and Adam hits harder but moves a little slower, which gives the game some real personality, even with the small roster. Combat is all about managing space and crowds, pulling enemies into positions where you can control the screen and instead of getting surrounded. Special attacks are powerful but cost health, as is normal in a beat 'em up. Creates a constant risk reward situation, especially when things get overwhelming. Co op is where Streets of Rage really shines. Playing with two people turns every encounter into controlled chaos, forces you to communicate, watch each other's positioning, avoid hitting one another while still clearing the screen. Mr. X works perfect as an arcade era villain. He's stylish, just cartoonish enough to be memorable without needing much backstory. And finally, there's the music. Uh, Yuzo Koshiro did the soundtrack, and it's a huge part of why the game still gets talked about, pulling electronic and club influences that were rare for console games at the time, pushing the Sega Genesis sound hardware in a way that felt genuinely modern. All that comes together to make Streets of Rage stand out from other beat 'em ups of the era. It's why the original game still holds up today as one of the most iconic brawlers for 16-bit games, right up there with Turtles in Time, the gold standard.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Well said. Just curious, do you guys like the Japanese title they gave it, Bare Knuckle?
No.
Okay. I was just curious because it's always interesting to me when I see like what the different titles are, and I'm like, Streets of Rage just sounds so cool. And it's like
It
Bare
does.
Knuckle.
Well,
It's like
well,
It's
it's
got the
it
same
goes
amount of
it well,
syllables as Call of Duty.
it goes way beyond bare knuckle, and I think
No,
the
it's less.
first one of the
Never
first
mind.
notes that I put down is that the policeman who throws like the bomb, or I don't know if it's a Molotov cocktail, I don't know what it is,
oh
but
yeah, yeah.
the policeman that shows up and he can like help, he injures all the enemies, he blows up the enemies, but some reason doesn't blow up you for whatever reason.
Yep.
I think that's really unique. We don't see that in the second game, I don't think. But yeah, that was confusing to me. Like the policeman is somebody who helps you and he can blow up the bad guys, but when he blows up the bad guys, you don't get blown up. So whatever, it's not game breaking. This game also unique fact, the multiplayer is only available on the Game Gear. So doesn't that seem backwards, right? Or is there that's what I wrote, what I wrote down, right? Is that
I'm
correct?
pretty sure the original Genesis version had the two player.
Hmm.
That's what I wrote down in the wiki.
Now I'm
Okay.
wondering.
That's what I wrote down in the wiki. It's that it was only it's only multiplayer on the Game Gear. But somebody fact checked me on that. um, but
I don't know. I remember playing it, but I also remember playing two. So I mean, I don't know. I I could be incorrect, but I'm pretty sure you could play on the original Genesis with two people. Um, yeah, that level clearing cop thing comes back in four.
Oh, right.
that's a power up you can get. So that's the only other time I think. I don't remember 3 having it, but anyway. Uh yeah, Streets of Rage 1, for being the first game in the series, it holds up really well. It's not like a Golden Axe where I feel like if you play them back to back, one's clearly superior to the other. So
Mhm.
I think it's a really solid first game in the series. This was the rare instance I think Sega had a better series than Nintendo. I think these are much better than the Final Fight games, which we've gone over before already. Uh, and I know we haven't got the second game yet, but one of the things I miss as a gamer is seeing box art in the store. I know that we live in
Yeah.
digital times and you still see art, but the box art on Streets of Rage games was so cool.
Yes.
Like it just grabbed you and you're like, no, I want to play that. And it's like we don't own that system. It's like, ah, ah. I remember that as a kid, as this was one of the only times I was like, man, I wish we had a Sega. It's like, oh, so you don't want the Super Nintendo? It's like, no, we keep that, but we should also get a Sega. So I don't know. I've always been a Nintendo kid. Sega I've grown to appreciate more, but this was an instance as a kid where I went, that's cool too. Like, oh, so I really like Streets of Rage.
Yeah, so do I. I think the box art for that second generation is more interesting. They seem to take more risks, at least,
Yeah.
at that time,
Attitude.
or it was just more Japanese influence. But yeah, holds up well. First one, music is great. Sprites look great. Backgrounds look very nice. And I really like all the different vehicles they include in this game as well.
Mm.
Um, so I just think that it is a game that holds up well, and I won't say the rating just yet, but I put it right next to Streets of Rage 2. I think
Oh yeah.
they're
Yeah,
both
I
pretty
did the
solid
same
and
for
similar.
the rating.
So,
So Streets of
Stre-
Rage 2.
Streets of Rage 2 takes everything that worked in the first game and refines it into something faster, louder, and more confident. Released in 1992, it feels like Sega knew exactly what people loved about the original, set out to make a definitive beat 'em up rather than just a sequel. The story, it's still simple, but more personal this time. Mr. X is back and he's kidnapped Adam, pulling Axel and Blaze back into the fight alongside two new characters. The expanded roster adds a lot to the game's identity. Axel returns as the balanced fighter, Blaze stays fast and agile, Max brings slow but devastating power, and Skate introduces speed and mobility that completely changes how the game can be played. Each character feels more distinct than before, and the improved animations and hit feedback make every punch, throw, special attack feel heavier, more satisfying. The combat is smoother and more aggressive, with enemies that push back harder and force you to stay on the move rather than relying on safe patterns. Co op is even better here. Tight controls, better crowd management, making teamwork feel essential instead of optional. The stages are more varied and memorable, moving through beaches, arcades, elevators, city streets that feel more alive, dangerous than anything in the first game. Boss fights, more creative and demanding, leaning into spectacle while still testing your ability to control the space. Yuzo Koshiro's soundtrack goes even harder in Streets of Rage 2, fully embracing electronic house, techno, um, influences like that were ahead of their time for a console game. Music doesn't just play in the background, it drives the pacing and energy of every level. All this adds up to a sequel that isn't just better than the original, but one that's often considered the high point of the entire genre, and a game that still feels fast, stylish, and brutally fun decades later.
I love that 90s trope of we're making a sequel. There needs to be some sort of like sports related kid that
Yeah.
you can play as. So you get Skate in this one. Uh yeah, 2 is really, really fun. Uh, what's fascinating to me about Streets of Rage is it never got a '90s movie, and it just seems like it was so
Double
right.
Dragon probably killed it. Like that
It
didn't do
might have.
well.
So
If
that
I mean,
and
put it this way, can
well,
you see them not making a Streets of Rage movie had Double Dragon been successful? Of course they would have done it.
There
yeah,
there were
it probably
so
would have
many of those movies in the 90s that
Mm.
they could have easily made it a bad one.
such a glorious, glorious time. But
Jean-Claude Van
it,
Damme can only be in so many places at once.
yeah, I know. But that, and then while I was playing 2, I thought it was interesting that none of these characters have been in other series. Like
Hmm.
they haven't jumped into Sonic Racing. They've never gotten into Smash Brothers,
Yeah, I was
which
about
is
to say
interesting.
Smash Ultimate 2.
Like I could see any of them being in that. So yeah, I think the second game is better. This one I do remember playing as a kid at my cousin's, but I feel like this was another, if you owned a Genesis, Streets of Rage 2 was one of the things you had, period.
Yeah.
As far as Sonic and everything
My
else. So
neighbors were the Genesis house, and that's absolutely true from my life experience as well.
yeah, so I think really like they do everything bigger and better, but it wasn't like you play Streets of Rage 2 and you couldn't go back to Streets of Rage 1. Like you can enjoy both, and I think that's awesome. Because that's so hard to balance in beat 'em ups, especially as you go to each one. Oh, this one's better. Why go back to the old one? So I
Hmm.
really, really enjoyed both of these, and I mean, uh, it also crazy to me. There's only 4 games in the series, and 4 being the most recent, and that's hands down one of my favorite games of the last 5 years of whatever since it's been released. But yeah, Streets of Rage is definitely a benchmark series, I feel like, for '90s games. And it's hands that's like I said, Turtles, you at least got 2 distinct versions of that between the 2 systems, so they're both good. But in like
Hmm.
I feel like in general beat 'em ups, Sega kind of won that battle more often than not with Nintendo, and Streets of Rage is the absolute pinnacle of that.
I've always tried to figure out, because besides the Ninja Turtle games, which you've mentioned a bunch of now, the main beat 'em up I played growing up was Maximum Carnage.
Okay.
And a lot of the enemy designs in Final Fight and Streets of Rage and all these other beat 'em ups look exactly like the enemies from Maximum Carnage, and I can't figure out why. It's a different developer. That developer really only made that game and its follow-up. That's it. Um, so it's not the same developer, and like, but I'm positive this is the same gang. It's the same gang, just in a different game, and I can't figure out like if maybe they had the same. I should look into like art designers and things like that. Maybe like the same person worked on both, even though it's a different company. I don't know, but it's so
No, I know
similar.
what you're saying. Like the jacket guys you only see from behind
Yes,
are
yep.
almost identical in those series. Yeah, yeah. So you're spot on with it. Yeah.
Harrison, what are your thoughts?
It improved over the last one. Feels more 90s. I wrote down, which is just maybe
Yeah.
just adding on to what you said, Sean. It might be more balanced. Is it more balanced? Do you think? 'Cause that's kind of how I felt. Maybe it's a tad
So
bit more balanced in the AI. Do you think so?
Hmm.
I would say in that regard, who is your go-to character?
I don't remember. Don't remember. Didn't play
I don't
this
really
week.
have one.
That didn't really have one. Why?
Okay, okay. Because for me, it's Blaze across the series, and so yeah, the enemies in 2 are fair. I'm not saying two's easy, but it's a fairer fight, I guess. And like Kevin said, like if you're playing with somebody else, you can kind of, formulate the best strategies to tackle things. But I think that's also like a product of early '90s video games were the first one out. it was kind of the, well, we got the basic premise, and then you kind of adjust as you go through the series. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean, the
agree with you,
Turtles
Harrison.
games you mentioned are a perfect
Yeah,
example of that. You have the arcade game, then you have Turtles in Time, and like in between there, you have uh, uh, Manhattan Project, which is like an enhanced version of the arcade game. And you've
yeah,
got
yeah.
Hyperstone Heist, and they all kind of build on each other.
Right, right. So I think all good beat 'em up series do that. Final Fight kind of goes all over the friggin' place, but um, yeah, I don't know. I they're just fun games. It's again, as I've said on here many times, my go to is you're both on the couch, same TV, playing side by side, and these games are that. So
Well, yeah, I think better balance. Um, I think I like the characters slightly more in Streets of Rage 2, and they feel pretty similar. So I would put Streets of Rage 2 just a little bit higher than the
yeah,
first one. And that's pretty much it. And so the gap, so we've had 4 games, and the gap between 3 and 4 is really big. 4 came out in 2020, right? So
Hmm.
um not only has there only been 4 games, but there was no Streets of Rage for a very, very long time between 3 and 4.
The streets were
yeah.
calm.
And then they get full of rage. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't played 4, I highly recommend it, especially if it goes on sale.
Yeah. And is it ironic that that Streets of Rage came out in 2020? I don't know. That there's nobody on the streets during that time. You can't even go on the street. The streets were not raging in 2020. I don't know.
At least it wasn't rampaging like River City. Oh, no,
True,
that was
true.
Ransom. No, Rampage. They had.
That worked. You got it. You
They
nailed
had
it.
multiple.
Oh, it was Retro City Rampage. That's what it was. The like
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
nostalgia bait remake type indie game.
yeah.
So they held the streets. They held the city for ransom. River City Ransom. Got it.
Uh, Streets of Rage will be 68 for me. Streets of Rage 2 will be 67. And that is right in the middle for me. And right in the middle's pretty solid right now. So definitely games that I would go back to if I was trying to play a game in this genre. Sure. Okay, what do you guys got?
Uh, they're they round out at 50 and 49. So Streets of Rage 52 at 49. Um, yeah, you know I love this genre. So you have to be a pretty lackluster beat 'em up for me to not want to go back. So now Streets of Rage, well worth your time.
I accidentally closed my notes. I'm getting I'm getting it back. I closed the tab by
Oh,
mistake. But mine are pretty much in the middle too. I was doing the math to find out where the middle of my list is because I have, let's see, 179 titles. And I put these at Streets of Rage is 94 and Streets of Rage 2 is 93. I put Streets of Rage 2 a little better. Those are in between Wave Race, which is a game I love, so these are in an area, a good neighborhood to live in. And
yep.
then the the games below them are the Game Boy Advance Densu no Starfy games, which I had a lot of fun with when we played them, but I'll probably never go back. So it's kind of right on that line.